Time now for the Sunday Talk, where we tap into the debate of the week. This week, multiculturalism. Post the American election, many Canadians found themselves looking inward, wondering if the divisions that have appeared in the U.S. could happen here. We pride ourselves on being open to diversity, but are Canadians becoming less open? In the days following the U.S. election, there was a spike in reports of bigotry.
And then I heard someone yell, "Stupid," and then they yelled, "Are you scared?" Because you should be.
Oh, Canada.
Some people are pledging to move here.
They're calling us from all over United States. The calls are from people who are asking if there's a way to claim asylum in Canada.
Canada has a reputation for embracing diversity.
No matter our faith, where we were born, what color our skin, what language we speak, or whom we love, we are all equal members of this great country.
What do you think here?
But are we as open-minded as we think? This week,
Back to your country. He's not from around these towns. I can tell by his face.
a self-proclaimed Trump supporter verbally attacked a man on Toronto public transit. Posters appealing to white supremacists have popped up in Toronto and Richmond, BC.
I've never seen anything like that. It's like cowards.
And racist graffiti on mosques and synagogues in Ottawa. In Quebec, a different development, a Muslim businessman created a storm this week when he floated a proposal to build a neighborhood for Muslims with community rules that follow Islamic tradition. So, do some Canadians only like multiculturalism when everyone stays in their own group? Just last month, a poll revealed 68% of Canadians said minorities should do more to fit in.
There are real limits to what Canadians are prepared to put up with in terms of accommodation.
I'm joined by our panelists. Adrienne Batra is editor-in-chief of the Toronto Sun. Elamine Abdelmahmoud is social media editor at BuzzFeed Canada, and Stephen Marsh is a culture writer at Esquire magazine. So hold off on the poll and all that other stuff for just a moment, but I want to start with you, Stephen, because you wrote a piece recently basically talking about Canada as this great beacon of multiculturalism. Make the case for that.
Well, I'm not sure we're a great beacon so much as we're the last man standing. Like, the light has gone out over the world, and we are the last people with a conscious multicultural policy and a politics that reflects that. And I think it increasingly makes us isolated. It increasingly makes us alone in the world. We have a celebration of diversity here that is just not found anywhere else. I mean, it's not really a question of the rules so much as it is the spirit of openness that we cherish, that I think we're finding ourselves increasingly alone in the world with that spirit.
So, Elamine, you came here as a kid from Sudan.
I was 12, yeah.
You're Muslim. Are things that rosy on the multicultural front here?
Not at all. I think Stephen is talking a little bit about a romantic vision of Canada, and I like that vision and I subscribe to that vision, but at the same time, I don't think it's real. I think you're talking a little bit about a fantasy. I think Canada's history in general has been characterized as swinging from discomfort with one group to discomfort with another. And I'm talking about, like, starting with Indigenous people, going to Jewish people, Jewish immigrants here in Canada. We've had a long history of just being uncomfortable with people and trying to keep them out. And I think you have a bit of selective amnesia there.
No, well,
I'll let you back in.
I mean, I don't mean to speak out of turn. Like, I'm not saying we're that great. I'm just saying we're better than the alternative. I mean, what we're not discussing is a registry of Muslim people, right? Like, they're
sure, but we have an immigration system
Europe.
that has a point system that really values English skills really highly, which is trying to say, like, we want certain immigrants and we don't want other immigrants. So I think we're still selective, just in different ways.
I sort of fall somewhere in the middle of this, shockingly, between where they both are. I think Stephen makes a legitimate point. I think Canada still has a very rich tradition and future for multiculturalism in the world. But where I agree with Elamine is I think that there are still pockets all across this country. And be it, we've seen what's happened in Europe, we've seen what's happened in the UK, when there has been an extraordinary amount of accommodation for certain minorities, people tend to fight back, and they tend to get frustrated by that.
So
I do
is
not
that
think that
happening
this
here
country
now?
is even close to that. I mean, we saw an attempt by the former Premier of Quebec, Pauline Marois, to push forward this Charter of Values. We all know that was not directed at Sikhs or Jews. That was directly aimed at Muslims.
Yes,
we understand that. And so if we actually want to have an honest intellectual conversation about where we are with multiculturalism, let's have the pure answer, and that is there are many that are uncomfortable with religious accommodation with Muslims in this country. That's a fact. And I don't think Elamine would disagree with me.
I would not disagree at all. In fact, I think we try to tell ourselves that we're really comfortable with accommodation, really comfortable with multiculturalism. We're good on school days when everybody gets to wear, you know, their country's flag. We can go to food festivals. When it comes to real stuff of accommodation,
we have folk fests.
We just fail at that.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
And if this is sort of the broader discussion we're having in light of a Trump election, I think that these isolated incidents that are happening are a reaction in some cases. I think they will all be tamped down in short order. I do not think that this is extraordinary. I think these are aberrations. But I think in Canada, we have broader discussions in various communities that we need to have as what is our Canadian value? What do we want as the future of our nation? And I think, frankly, we're in a good position to do that.
There was this poll, Stephen, actually it was a month ago, and it's just one poll, but it suggested that a lot of Canadians don't feel that newcomers are doing enough to fit in. What does that say?
This is one poll out of many, and I mean, I think the way the question is phrased, which is that immigrants should be doing more to integrate. I mean, I think the thing about Canada is that our immigration system works well exactly because it is so selective. This is because we don't have 12 million.
But then let's not pretend that we're trying to accommodate all these different cultures.
I absolutely think
people who are like us, right?
The myth that Canada's multicultural system works well because it's compassionate is a joke.
Absolutely.
But nor should it would be. We're dealing with real issues. When you let in huge numbers of people from all over the world, what you spread is chaos, and what you spread is a system that cannot possibly
but I mean,
work.
Is a pragmatic multiculturalism, is that even multiculturalism at all? Is that just trying to bring some economic migrants who can improve the situation here?
But do we throw around the word multiculturalism because it makes us feel good, because it makes us feel inclusive, because it makes it feel like, oh my gosh, we are actually trying to make our society better? I don't know if that's actually the case. My parents came to Canada in 1967 from, you know, various backgrounds and the like. I feel, when my dad is a Sikh, he cut his hair, not necessarily because he felt he needed to fit into Canadian culture. They gave us all Canadian names, but that's just the choice that they made. And I think that there's a certain generation of immigrants that have come to this country at a certain time that have recognized we want to be very much part of the Canadian fabric. Now it's a bit different. You see so many immigrants come into the country, and they are more hardlined on their own culture, bringing it here than they are from what's back in the homeland.
What are we talking about here?
But I think that there's...
What do these accommodations actually look like? What are they, like, in terms of like this Quebec case, they're asking for a situation where they don't have to pay interest on their mortgages because Islam forbids interest rates?
Well, actually, they're asking for more than that. They're asking that women dress modestly, that you not drink. I mean, it is...
You can't dress the way you want if you buy a house there.
But it's a voluntary situation where, like, if you get into that neighborhood, you are agreeing to the rules of it because for you, that's what you believe in.
How is that creeping Sharia acceptable in Canada?
Creeping Sharia?
It is.
This is exactly what I'm talking about, is that we're not comfortable with accommodations. We're not comfortable...
I'm sorry. Telling women how to dress moderately in a certain community in Canada is not something that is that's not acceptable.
I'm going to bring Stephen back in here.
See, the fight that you're having right now is actually avoided in Canada for the... Like, this is the fight that is tearing apart America. It is the fight that is absolutely ripping the Europeans to shreds. It is why Denmark cannot have the liberal society it wants while also being open to immigration. And what Canada has is we have the 27th section of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which says when you come here, the charter, the agreement of the country says preserve your culture. The charter also says if you don't like homosexuals, too bad. Right. You're going to have to deal with it.
Multiculturalism with limits.
Everyone who comes here, they sign on to a deal. And that deal is actually...
And that deal is the charter, and that is egalitarianism in this country.
I'm actually being very serious. What accommodations are undue hardships on...
It's called reasonable accommodation.
Sure.
And the courts actually work it out. And it is an everyday negotiation.
What do you find perfectly reasonable within these accommodations? Specifically, let's talk about that Quebec incident.
People who are making a religious choice to be in a community and they want... Like, the charter protects their choice to do that, even if you don't like it. And I see that you're shaking your head at it.
I don't like it. Because it's antithetical to every everything that I think is what is great about our country, and that's egalitarianism.
Luckily, we don't
Stephen,
make
I
the
just want to bring
rules
Stephen
based
back
on
in
what
here
one
for a
person
second.
likes, right?
But they are actually making such a hay about it that you think this is going to be in one community, then it spreads to others, and
I think that's a really dramatic version of what's going to
it's
happen.
not
here.
dramatic.
Stephen, on this, haven't there always been enclaves? There's different kinds of communities all across the country.
We are not.
Is this just
we
a
are
reaction
not,
as-
Canada has never, ever, at any point, before multiculturalism or after it, been a monad. We have always been dealing with French Canadians, English Canadians, immigrants from all over the world, plus 640 different native governments of various kinds. It is not possible to identify a Canadian ideal. That's why we have multiculturalism. And the reason our immigration system works, the reason we are not being ripped apart, is because we have a spirit of openness combined with a very rigid set of tolerance that you cannot.
Can I push you back on that? Because I don't think that's true. I think we've had periods of time where we've been okay with that openness, but also other periods of time where we haven't. And I'm talking, for example, about all the way from the 1920s to the late 1930s and 1940s, when this country was not okay with Jewish immigrants.
We did not have our own government then. I'm talking about after the Charter.
But we have changed, and the Charter has made such a fundamental adjustment to so much of that. And I don't
I would
think that
argue
we
that
can
the spirit
discount
of Canada
that.
remains
So
the same. Okay.
we're not going to solve all of this tonight, but Adrian, I'll come to you. Do you think that this is Canada going through a sort of cyclical, we have ups and downs and all of this multiculturalism, or is something fundamentally changing now, as it does appear to be the case in the rest of the world?
I think like so many other countries, have our ups and downs, but I think ultimately the Canadian public is embracing. We all grow up in various communities with different ethnicities. We try different cultures, and we go to these festivals, and we appreciate the different religious beliefs of our friends. And I don't think that we are down the road that any one of our European or American friends are.
Is something fundamental changing, Elamine?
I think certainly our American friends, their win has emboldened certain forces here. But no, I don't think anything's changed. I think this country goes through periods of time where we accept people, and then periods of time where we say we're not really comfortable with this much change, and then we get over it, and we only get over it, I find, when we find another group to say, we're not really sure we're comfortable with you. Right now it happens to be Muslim immigrants. I don't know what it's going to be next, but it's going to be somebody.
Almost out of time. Last word to you, Stephen.
Well, I think the future of this debate is what happens in the Conservative Party and what decision they make. Because I think the Conservative Party, for all of its many vices, has not really made much of a racist party. It has never really made an appeal to these nativist elements. Quite the opposite. In fact, it's been,
And now it's discussing
it's always
Canadian
fought for the
values.
905. It's fought very hard for these Muslim communities. It's wanted to belong to them. And the question is, does some part of that party decide that they're going to make a Trump-like play? Because as it now stands, we don't really have a party that is anti-immigrant.
It's been really interesting. Thank you so much. And
thank you.
we'll watch to see how much actually changes. We have to take a short break, but when we come back, one of the most recognized American activists weighs in on his fear of a Trump presidency.
If we have a major terrorist attack or two, he can become a monster.
Our conversation with Ralph Nader is straight ahead.